So the Switch 2 has been out for 4 months now, nearly 4 months. It's been out since June, and there's still no sign of a Minecraft Switch 2 version. Now, Minecraft does run on the Switch 2 via backwards compatibility with the Switch 1, and it runs fairly well. It runs at a stable 60 FPS from what I can tell, but it's still limited to the Switch 1's settings and to the Switch 1's, performance basically. It does have a more stable frame rate than the Switch 1 because it is more powerful hardware, but it's still running the Switch 1 version of the game. And I've tested this myself with my Switch 1, and with my Switch 2 I mean, and although it does run better than the Switch 1 version, and it doesn't, lag as much, it doesn't have any frame rate issues really. What it does have though is it's still limited to that. I think it's 12 chunk render distance, which is lower than most smartphones. And that's running on a Switch 2, which is, about as powerful as a PS4 basically, if not slightly more powerful. So it's close to like Series S, Xbox Series S performance. So, and not only that, now the Switch didn't even get the Vibrant Visuals update, which introduced basically a graphical update to Minecraft. It didn't even get that because it's still running, it's still the Switch, the original Switch version. It's not the Switch 2. The Switch 2 would probably be powerful enough to have Vibrant Visuals. It would be at a lower render distance, it would be at a lower frame rate, but it would still be able to achieve that. I'm fairly certain even the PS4 has the Vibrant Visuals update. But the thing is, when the PlayStation 5, when the next gen consoles launched, such as the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X and S, Minecraft didn't actually receive a next gen update on those consoles until like 4 years down the line, 4 years after these consoles were released. And that is crazy, especially because, Microsoft owns Minecraft. You'd think they'd be prioritizing releasing the next gen upgrade to their next gen Xbox consoles. But no, the PS5 next gen update for Minecraft was released on the 22nd of October 2024, if I'm not mistaken. And that's nearly 4 years after the PS5's release date, which was in 2020. So, judging by that, are we supposed to expect the Nintendo Switch 2 version of the game to release 4 years after the Switch 2? Because there's no sign that it's even being worked on. As at least as far as I know, there hasn't been anything from Mojang, from anyone really, about the Switch 2 version. Nothing official has been confirmed as far as we know about the Switch 2 version. So right now, whilst the game is still getting updated on Nintendo Switch, Switch 2 people with the Switch 2 are still having to run the Switch 1 version with, I think it's maximum 12 chunk render distance, like I said. It's barely playable when you've got like an Elytra. If you're flying with an Elytra, like the stuff doesn't even load in time when you're actually flying. The render distance is just too low, and the game isn't optimized for the Switch 2, obviously. So whilst it is definitely playable, it's not taking advantage of the powerful Switch 2 hardware, because for a handheld console, the Switch 2 is incredibly powerful. So it should be able to run Minecraft at least slightly better than a PS4, and that would certainly be the case if it did have a next gen update for the Switch 2. But right now we are just running the regular Switch 2 version, and it's it just doesn't run well enough to where I'd like to play it essentially. And it is a shame because the Switch 2 would probably be one of the best ways to play Minecraft in handheld mode. It would be one of the best ways to play Minecraft portably. You do have the mobile version of Minecraft, which you can download. Obviously, you can buy on the App Store or Play Store, but not everyone wants to play video games on their phone. I know that phones are a lot larger nowadays. They're very powerful, but not everyone wants to game on a touchscreen device. Yes, there are like backbone controllers and other types of controllers that you can use to play on your phone. But at the end of the day, a handheld console is still probably one of the best ways to play portably for most people. And so, it kind of puts me off from playing Minecraft on my Switch 2 because it's just quite a terrible version of the game. The Switch version already, when the Switch version was quite bad, and the Switch 2 runs the Switch 1 version, and it runs it very stable, but it's still the Switch 1 version. It's not really that. Nothing is pushing the Switch 2 hardware to its limits, and it's not optimized for the Switch 2. And I'm just wondering, how difficult is it for Mojang to actually develop a Switch 2 upgrade or even a patch to optimize the game for the Switch 2 in the meanwhile? Because I'm not a video game developer or anything. Perhaps it takes longer than what most people would think. But, is it not just as simple as just patching the game with, allowing the game to have a higher render distance, for example? I'm sure that the Switch 2 would still run that fine. Now, there would have to be optimizations made specifically for the Switch 2, and so maybe they are just working on a full Switch 2 upgrade that would also include the vibrant visuals upgrade. It would include, the better graphics, the higher render distance, and ultimately just a more stable version of the game. And it would probably be one of the best ways to play Minecraft portably, because whilst there are PC handhelds are not quite mainstream yet, and really the only way to properly play Minecraft on a PC handheld is through a Windows PC handheld such as the Asus ROG Ally, which, for most people, a Windows handheld isn't as great as something like a Steam Deck. And a Steam Deck, I think, can run Minecraft. It can run the Android version or something like that. But certainly the Switch 2 is a more mainstream device. I believe it outsold the Steam Deck in the first 24 hours. And that's not, I'm not trying to attack PC handhelds, just to make that clear, because I do have a Steam Deck myself, and it's probably one of my favorite devices, and it can play far more games than my Switch 2 can play, and games go on sale a lot more often, obviously on Steam. But with that being said, quite unfortunate that we're not getting any news or any updates about whether or not the Switch 2 version is even being worked on or is even being considered. Minecraft is the best-selling game. It's always on the charts for like the top selling game on the Nintendo eShop, which is the digital store on Nintendo Switch and Switch 2, where you can buy digital games. It's always among like the top 3, top 5 games. A lot of the time on the charts, it's like best-selling game currently. There's a lot of people that play Minecraft on the Switch, and with the Switch 2 having sold so many units, in just the few months that it's been out, there's probably a significant portion of Minecraft players that are currently playing Minecraft on the Switch 2 through the Switch 1 backwards compatibility, and they're basically playing like a very very terrible version of the game on hardware that is actually quite capable and is able to run the game fairly well. So obviously we maybe it won't run the game as well as we'd expect. Maybe they're having trouble optimizing the game for the Switch 2. However, I think it's fair to say that the Switch 2 is at least as powerful as a PS4, and a PS4 can definitely run Minecraft a lot better than the original Nintendo Switch. So I think that the Switch 2, it definitely deserves to have its own next gen upgrade. Let me know what you all think down below in the comments regarding this whole debate, whether you have a Switch 2 or you're planning to get one in the future. But even with the PS5 and Xbox Series X versions of the game, they just took way too long, to be honest. I mean, 4 years for an upgrade to one of the most popular and best selling games of all time is kind of like, it's kind of frustrating. I'm not saying, I'm not, attacking Mojang or anything. I'm not saying that. I'm not attacking really any the developers of the game. It's just kind of confusing as to why, it took 4 years to release a next gen upgrade. But that being said, the next gen upgrade was very nice. It was nice to have, especially on the PS5. And hopefully the Switch 2 version, I mean, I'm sure it will get an upgrade at some point. I'm sure they are, Mojang is probably thinking about it, is probably considering it. But, there hasn't been really any communication regarding it, which is fine because, if they're not currently working on it, then it doesn't really matter. But I think the Switch 2 definitely deserves its own upgrade. It's a really good handheld console. It definitely has the power to run Minecraft a lot better than it currently does through the Switch 1 backwards compatibility. But either way, as far as we know for now, there hasn't really been any communication regarding this. And it's, I mean, we can't really do anything except like speculate about what it could be. All I know is that if there is a Switch 2 upgrade, I'm sure it will probably get I'm definitely 100% sure it will get vibrant visuals. Even the PS4 version got vibrant visuals. If even the last gen consoles got it, then I'm assuming that the Switch 2 would get vibrant visuals when there is a next gen upgrade for it. I imagine they just want to do everything at once. They don't want to just patch the game now. They want to actually build a proper next-gen upgrade for the Switch 2 that properly utilizes its hardware, which would be great if that's what they're considering doing. And yeah, I mean, if we have to wait a while for that, hopefully it won't be 4 years again. Especially with the PlayStation 6, possibly coming out in a couple of years' time. Kind of crazy because it feels like this generation only basically just begun. But yeah, we'll see what happens. Let me know down below in the comments what you think. Maybe you just don't care because you don't have a Switch 2. Or maybe you do have a Switch 2 and you've been sort of, wondering what's been going on with the Switch 2 upgrade. For me, I don't typically play Minecraft portably, but it would be cool to have, the Switch 2 version so that it plays a little bit better on the Switch 2, a little bit better it's going to be my best way to play Minecraft on a handheld console, basically, besides the Steam Deck. And besides, I guess, the mobile version of the game. But again, I'm not really a huge mobile gamer or anything like that. I just don't really like touchscreen controls. I don't really like having to turn my phone into a gaming device. But a lot of people do, and the mobile version of the game is very popular. So yeah, we'll just see what happens, essentially. I hope you all enjoyed this video. Let me know down below what you think in the comments. And I'll see you all in the next one.